say just a couple of prayers here to get us started. If you've got the gold prayer book, this is the gold prayer book. It's on page 34 that we'll start. And if you've got one of the white binders, I think it's the first page of text. And we'll start with Shakyamuni Buddha's mantra, and we'll recite that 3 times. Taya ta om mune mune maha munae soha. Taya ta om mune mune maha munae soha. Taya ta om mune mune maha munae soha. And then just a little bit below that, the 4 immeasurables. We'll recite that once in English. May all sentient beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. May all sentient beings be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. May all sentient beings be inseparable from the happiness that is free from suffering. May all sentient beings abide in equanimity, free from attachment for friends and hatred for enemies. And then in the prayer book, if you turn the page, and I believe it's just below it in the white binder, the version with the music notes, we'll actually chant this in Tibetan. So on page 37. Sem chen tam che de wa dong de we gyu dong dem par gyur chi dung ya dang dung ya gi gyu dang dre war gyur chi dung ya me pe de wa da mi dre war gyur chi nye rin cha dang ni dan dre we tan yon la ne par gyur chi. And then just below that, we'll recite Chen Reizig's mantra 8 times and Green Tar's mantra 7. Om mani padme hum. 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 Om tare tu re so ha. 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 Om tare tu re so. Fantastic. Thanks, everybody. So for those of you who don't know me, I'm Chuki, and this is Donna. She's our spiritual program coordinator, and we're your fearless co-leaders here this morning. So before we begin, I always like to take just a moment to rejoice and think about how amazing it is that we have the opportunity to all be here today. You know, you all thought about this, obviously, to get dressed and come and to be here. So that's all really fantastic, the effort it took to come here. And then the fact that we even have a center, you know, that Don Brown decided to found Kadampa Center and Lamazo Rinpoche said okay. And then people like Robbie Watkins, our center director, came along. And we have so many volunteers and just a couple of staff members that keep things running. And it's just this amazing collection of all of our efforts that allowed the center to be here, to be in this building, and then to keep going. So just maybe rejoice at how precious this really is. There aren't probably a lot of people in Raleigh doing exactly this morning. So this is pretty special. And so I really appreciate y'all being here. So in Geshe-la's tradition, maybe we could take just a minute or two and introduce ourselves to each other. So if you all would do that, please.
Yeah. One more.
Fantastic. So from time to time, we have a funny little practice that we do here. And it's not traditionally Tibetan Buddhist, but sanctioned by Geshe-la. And it's just something to sort of give us all a lighter heart before we begin. So Jill's going to lead us in laughing yoga.
All right, standing up, looking like you. Good. So I think we haven't done it in ages. I think we take 3 deep breaths, and then when we're done, we belly laugh. So everybody's been doing this, so don't worry about being silly. Close your eyes if you can embarrass. Okay, inhale.
Excellent, excellent. Okay. So you're up next.
Okay. So now that we got our yayas out, we're going to do a little bit of meditation. And this morning we're going to do a 21 round breathing meditation. And, you know, the reason we meditate is a little bit like the reason we go to a doctor if we're feeling sick. You know, we go and take our physical ailments to a doctor. And meditation is kind of a form of taking our mental ailments to our own inner doctor. So many of our problems, you know, our anger, our anxiety, depression, those are all having to deal with the mind. And so the way to address them is with the mind. And meditation helps us begin to protect our minds. So a lot of those problems occur to not having a positive mindset. And the problems that do occur due to the mind have to be solved through the mind. So we do that through thinking. And when you meditate, you might be thinking, reviewing something positive, texts or something that you've learned. It's just meditation is about thinking something positive, think something good. So Geshe-la often talks about 3 different types of meditation. There's review meditation, where you're kind of going over in your mind something that you've learned or something positive. There's analytical meditation, where you're thinking about it and trying to understand, does this make sense? How does this connect to that? And then there's concentration meditation. And the one we're going to do this morning is a concentration meditation. It's 21 round breathing meditation. So one of the reasons we do this kind of concentration meditation is to calm the mind and help us make a transition from a negative mind to a positive mind. If you're already in a positive mindset, and you stop and think, how am I doing right now? Then you don't really need concentration meditation. But if you're in a negative mindset, then this will help you move into a neutral mindset, from which it's very easy then to move into a positive mindset. So, and one way we do this is watching your breath. And what's really nice about breathing meditation is you can take it with you wherever you are. So the goal of this meditation is to calm our minds, and we do it through going through 21 counts of breathing without making mistakes. So we're kind of keeping on task and keeping our count, so we don't suddenly go from, we're saying 12, well, no, was the last one 11 or what? Okay, I better start back at 1. And it's not at all a failure if you find yourself doing that. That's a success when you realize, oops, I've lost my train of thought, because then you are being mindful actually, and you're going back to 1. We're so competitive in our culture, and we are all success oriented, and so finding yourself wandering is actually a success in concentration meditation. So we want to sit comfortably, and one of the things that's important in breathing meditation is a straight back, so that you kind of imagine there's a hollow tube in the center of your body, and there's no kinks in it, so everything can kind of flow smoothly. So we begin in this kind of meditation with an exhalation and then an inhalation, and we're just breathing through the nose, and you just count. So you breathe out, and then when you breathe in, that's 1. You breathe out. When you breathe in, that's 2. And when you find yourself going, where the heck am I? You just go back to 1, and then you know where you are. So we're just going to do this practice for a while. We'll give ourselves a couple of minutes and try to get to 21, and no worries if you don't.
Okay, great. Look at all those calm faces. So, today we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects. Um, building on the last couple of weeks of discussion, today we're going to talk about how to work with anger and disturbing emotions. And the reason why I say this is one of my favorite topics is because I really think that anger and these difficult emotions can be shifted. You know, that we can become happier through using some different tools and techniques and working on it. So before we launch into it, probably should have asked this before I just said that last statement, but quick show of hands, who really thinks they can change their anger? Wow, awesome, okay. Sometimes it can feel like, you know, it just comes up so fast, there's just no way that you could interrupt that process. So we'll be talking a little bit about when that happens and what are some things we can do. You know, part of why I love this topic is that personally I'm not a great formal meditator. I aspire to that and I definitely see the benefit of that, but it's not where my strength lies. Now, anger, I've had a lot of field work in that. I'm pretty good at anger. So, and actually anger was one of the main driving forces for me to even find Kadampa Center way back in 2003. So coming and taking classes, discovering Buddhism at Kadampa Center really taught me a lot of tools that helped shift that for me, and so I'm very grateful for the teachings that I've had on this topic. Okay, so I'm going to start off with a quote here by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. He says, "Understanding the advantages and drawbacks of particular emotions and applying our intelligence, we can transform our minds." So that's what we're going to be looking at today. So in Buddhism, we talk about the three poisons, and they're usually translated or often translated as attachment, anger, and ignorance. And so you can see that, you know, if we've got three main poisons and anger is one of them, then that's pretty high on the list of things we can look at. So we're going to start out with a video here by His Holiness the Dalai Lama. In 2010, His Holiness gave a private session in his residence for a group of Buddhists from Vietnam. So we'll get to have a little look at where he holds teachings actually in his residence. It's about 5 minutes of a video, and then we'll talk a little bit about it after. So, oops.
Peace of mind must develop within ourselves. We can't buy peace of mind from supermarket or from medication. Now, you see there, our life, global level or national level or individual family level or individual level, problem there. Endless problem. Buddha described that is samsara, the suffering nature, right? And our very existence is in the nature of suffering. Buddha never said our life is a very happy one. If we are very happy, then no need try to practice Dharma and reach Nirvana. That's not necessary. So therefore, the problem there, you must take for granted that because of the causes of conflict or differences always there, suffering always there. This very body, the basis of illness, basis of problem. Now understand that reality. Meantime, the possibility to overcome these problems, according to Buddhism. So therefore, looking the possibility of cessation of suffering, then you get some kind of hope. And think more that line while you are engaged in your worldly life. Then make more balance. That's the only way. the problem. And one is life is very pleasant, and I'm facing uncontrollable. Oh, life is very good, very pleasant, very joyful. Yet I'm confronting some unnecessary or some kind of yes, something. My case is special sort of problem I'm facing. God, I don't deserve. You see, that kind of attitude is the real causing of our mental problem. If you understand, there are problems. I think 6 billion human beings, including myself, including these Vietnamese, all have some kind of problems. Now I myself last now 51 years as a refugee. There are a lot of problems inside Tibet. If I only look that side, then more disturbances. But we are carrying our struggle truthfully, honestly, transparently. That gives me more inner strength. And more inner strength brings truth, brings inner peace, like that. So like that. I think firstly important is your life, your business work must carry with honest. If you yourself a little too much clever, telling lies here and here, then you won't be happy. Must carry honestly, transparently, truthfully. Then there's no point to regret. So we must be very realistic approach, and basically our life must be based on truth, honest. These are the, isn't it?
Okay, so some good juicy bits in there. So you often hear, even like in pop culture, that the Buddha is quoted as saying life is suffering. His Holiness was talking a little bit about that. We've also heard this translated as life is dissatisfaction, and Geshe-la often says that life is full of complications or all kinds of problems. So it's not simply the suffering of like, oh, I've got a pain in my knee, right? We're talking about all of those sort of dissatisfactions, anything that's kind of troublesome. And, sometimes folks think that sounds pretty depressing, why are you Buddhists always talking about suffering? And like His Holiness said here, like Geshe-la has said, if it was only that one point, well, maybe we are better off partying and not worrying about it, because it's not just about wallowing in the suffering, right? So life is suffering. That's the first of 4 statements that are called the Four Noble Truths. And I know last week you all talked a little bit about that, the first teaching that the Buddha gave after becoming enlightened was the Four Noble Truths. And, cessation is possible. That's one of the 4 truths, right? So meaning cessation of the suffering. We can stop that. So the Four Noble Truths, just to recap, to review, are the truth of suffering, the truth of the origin of suffering, the truth of the cessation of suffering, and then the truth of the path to the cessation of suffering. So basically, we're suffering, there are causes for it, there's a way out, and then, it can stop and there's a way out. Those are kind of the 4 points. So feeding back to this whole point about how we can learn to work with our minds, I think that this is laying out that's very possible, and we can become happy from the inside out. And then I thought it was really interesting, that point that His Holiness made about how, if we recognize that the condition of life is this kind of dissatisfaction or suffering, then that can help, because then when we're having problems, we don't feel like I'm really special in having problems, negatively special for having these problems, because everyone else is, doesn't have them, or I'm the only one who has to struggle with these things, what's wrong with me? We can kind of dispel some of that extra layering of making things worse that we do. So, and then a final point that His Holiness made in this, that he said we should be realistic. So, actually identifying the problems and, not acting like they're not there. Geshe-la has often said, well, you have a headache because you have a head. If you didn't have a head, you wouldn't have a headache, And one time, a few years ago when we were having a discussion on this, someone brought up something that one of their teachers had said, that was, if you have a goat, expect goat problems. And I thought, that really works with like cars or houses or relationships, right? I mean, you can plug in all kinds of things. So His Holiness said, okay, there's a problem there. All right. So, understanding that, and then once you understand the problem, it won't disturb your mind as much. I thought that was very interesting. So, okay, so we'll have a chance. We're going to have some small discussion at the end. And so if there's anything that comes up in here that you want to discuss more, there will be an opportunity in a little bit. So.
Okay, my turn. So, Chikula has been talking about suffering, and of course, one of the things that is involved in whether we have a suffering or a happy state of mind is our emotions. And Lama Zopa Rinpoche in How to Practice Dharma has a pithy little quote about these emotions. Any action done free from the three poisonous minds of greed, hate, and ignorance is the cause of happiness. We don't have to wait until our future lives to experience this happiness. As soon as we stop the dissatisfied mind, immediately there is the result, happiness. So again, those negative states of mind, you like that, huh? The negative states of mind of anger, hatred, and jealousy destroy our mental happiness. And the positive states of mind that enhance our mental happiness are compassion, loving kindness, and generosity. And I think most of us can think about our own experiences of feeling those emotions and knowing how good that feels, actually. So His Holiness talks about how afflictive emotions are our biggest enemy. They destroy our peace of mind and our ability to use our intelligence. And if you think about what your reasoning capacity is when you're extremely angry, you'll see the truth of that. And they harm us, they harm society, and they really threaten the future of the whole world. So our emotions affect our behavior also. Anger physically raises our heart rate, maybe our blood pressure. We might do harmful things when we're angry or when our attachment isn't getting what it wants. I guess an extreme is when somebody gets so mad they put their fist in the wall, but you might toss something across the room or other things that you might do that are harmful. And there are also subtler ways that we act on our emotions. If we're not aware of how our desire to avoid something or to get something can affect what we're doing. And I've certainly caught myself many times realizing that I'm doing something out of a motivation that is a negative motivation. I'm angry or I want something and I'm pretending to myself, I'm trying to manipulate things to get what I want, and it's coming from a negative state of mind. But His Holiness says we really can change that, and we're really in a fortunate situation to have a human life where we have reasoning capacity, we have the ability to hear teachings and start to practice them and apply them to our lives, and by doing that we can change our frame of mind.
Okay, so we're going to go back to another video here by His Holiness that's actually called Dealing with Anger. And in the fall of 2011, His Holiness gave this talk in Dehradun, India. And this short clip, it's only 2 minutes long, but it's really just chock full of all kinds of talking points about anger. So we'll watch this one next.
Firstly, I think you should realize that anger to face the problem, our method should be, as I mentioned earlier, realistic. In order to carry realistic method, you must know the reality. When we look the reality, when we investigate the reality, our mind should be calm. Otherwise, we cannot see the thing objectively. So, in order to use human intelligence properly, our mind should be calm. So, thinking is like anger. You see, firstly, destroy your inner peace. Secondly, destroy your ability to investigate the reality. So, you think this way. Then, once you have clear sort of awareness, anger is no use, only destruction. Then you yourself become a little bit sort of distant from anger.
Okay. So, some of those things might be common sense, something might be new there, however it hits you. But I thought it might be interesting if we break up into really small groups, like maybe just 3 or 4 people, and discuss a couple of points of the video. I have a little slide here. I think. Oh dear, technical difficulties. Okay. So these were 3 points I thought might be interesting to cover in the discussion. So is there a fallacy in the common notion that anger can be positive? Is there any motivation for us for anything positive that comes from anger? His Holiness says that anger destroys our inner peace and our ability to investigate reality. So what do you think about that? Yes or no, and why for each of those? And then what are some tools for working with anger that you've tried and had some success with? So if you'd all just get into small groups and discuss this, and we'll have a few minutes, and then we'll ring the bell to bring you back.
Oh, okay.
Thank you. So wonderful. Such a lively discussion. This is great. So, for this first one, is there anything positive about anger and does it help motivate us? You know, in the clip, His Holiness had said that the short term energy of anger is blind and ultimately it doesn't benefit. And, you know, Geshe Gelik has encouraged us to, if we look closely, that we see that it's not the anger that motivates us for the positive action. You know, like an example is, let's say if you feel like your anger motivates you to work for social justice, well, it might not be the anger that's motivating you to work for social justice, even if you might be angry about things, because the compassion or the wish for the social equality is probably what's motivating you, right? So really taking a close look and trying to pull it apart, that can be instructive for us. And of course, we can find examples where anger motivates us for something negative. I mean, revenge would be a good example. So, you know, it's not that there isn't a motivation that comes from anger, but to think about positive things being motivated by anger. One practical way to work with anger when it arises, His Holiness has said, is to watch and create some distance. So, you know, Geshe talked about our introspective mind being a bit removed from the emotion. And really simply, you know, like just giving ourselves a timeout, right? Removing ourselves from the object if we can, and that's not always possible. But, you know, when we're talking about any kind of disturbing emotion, you know, Geshe Gelik tells us that, you know, for the beginner, removing yourself from the object is often the best course. You know, as we become more skilled, maybe we can try working with it, but that's really a more advanced move. So, and, you know, when is the best time to look at anger? So, in the moment when we're angry, you know, Venerable Robina says, zip your lip and keep your hands to yourself, right? That's the most we can hope for a lot of times, right? I mean, that's a real success if we can do that, right? But before it arises, after it arises, that's when we've got some time to work with it. And years ago, when I was really struggling with anger, Tendrin-La had given me a good example. She said, you know, it's like the crying baby, right? Like when you're in that moment of anger, you can like be holding it going, okay, I know you, I recognize what this is, you know, and be kind of generally accepting of it without acting on it, right? And that takes some real skill to be able to do it. And just to be clear, I'm not saying I got any of this down. But sometimes, you know, trying these things, I've seen some progress. So it's definitely a we working on this. I don't want to make it sound like I know what I'm talking about. But like I said, a lot of field work. So, okay, so next one.
Okay, so now we're going to listen to a few minutes, about 3 minutes of a public talk that His Holiness gave in May of 2012, and I have to say this town, Klagenfurt, Austria. So we're going to listen to that for a few minutes.
So I think another sort of point, real disturbance of emotions, not sensorial level. Sensorial causing that, but real sort of disturbance sort of emotions mainly come from mental level. So now, in order to achieve calm or happy life, calm mind is very essential. So since real the source of disturbance come from mental level, so we have to deal with mental level. Now here, firstly, pay more attention about our inner values. inner world, I think quite sufficient now. External world, we have quite good knowledge. But inner world, even you see, within this skull, a small space, we exploring external space, but sometimes we not yet fully cover about our inner space here. So it is important, useful to think more about our mind, about our emotion itself. The other day I mentioned, once the emotion develop, then try to watch emotion by another mind. Then it automatically will, this intensity of the negative emotion to subside. For example, when you feel strong anger, then try to look at anger or at mind. Try. We can do that. We have that ability. Try to watch the mind which is dominated by anger. As soon as you watch that, the intensity of the anger, so like that. So it is quite interesting to look inward about mind.
Okay, so His Holiness started off talking about how our emotions are internal. They're not created by the outside sensory world. And teachers talk about Tibetan practitioners who were imprisoned many, many years by the Chinese and never lost their compassion for their captors. So that's an example of being able to maintain a state of mind that is contrary to what might be happening externally. So if we pay more attention to our internal world, we can have more control over our feelings. Lama Zopa Rinpoche puts this very succinctly in a great little quote that I've got on my refrigerator. No anger inside, no enemies outside. And then, His Holiness also talks about watching our emotion from another mind. So you can have, angry Julie happening here, but then there's this other Julie who's kind of watching and going, oh, that's interesting. She doesn't need to do that. Let's see what we can do about that. And, it's kind of like, and we do have those two things going on in our minds. You can be driving along, you're driving from work to the grocery store, and you're having a conversation with somebody next to you, and you get all caught up in the conversation, and you suddenly realize you've driven home instead of the grocery store because that other little mind isn't paying attention to what you're doing. And our mind is like the same thing. If you're angry, you have a goal that you want to get to, but if you don't let this other mind kind of monitor what's going on and keep you on track, then you suddenly find yourself lost in the wilderness. So we want to use that meta mind.
Okay, so we've been talking about this importance of trying to lessen our disturbing emotions. So I know last week you all did an exercise that's kind of similar to what we're going to do right now, but this in particular is going to be focused on, afflictive emotions. So if everybody could take just a moment and bring to mind a role in a real life situation or a habit of mind that you'd like to shift, something that's just personal for you. You're not going to have to share this unless you want to, but so if possible, think of at least one concrete step you'd take towards making this shift, making this change. So we'll take just like 60 seconds and just kind of think about that. Okay, great. Thanks for playing along. And so now we're going to do a similar thing and think of a time when you actually did make a change, something, a habit or a mental mindset, something that you did change that you feel happy about. And it could be something small or something great. And if you're having trouble, you could even think of a time that you just behaved in a way you feel good about. You know, holding a door for somebody, letting somebody in when you're driving, you know. Anything at all. Just, we'll take just a moment and think about that. All right, fantastic. Yeah. So let's just rejoice about those positive changes that we've actually been effective in making. And so keep those in mind for a moment. We're going to come back to those. So when we look at how to make a change, in this book, In the Art of Happiness, a book by His Holiness, he talks about how to actually bring about a positive change, we need 5 things. So first, education, then conviction, then determination, then action, and finally effort. So education, conviction, determination, action, effort. And in the same book, he also says that to overcome apathy and generate a commitment and to have enthusiasm to overcome negative states of mind, we need to have constant awareness of the destructive effects. Right? If we're aware of sort of the bad stuff that can happen, we might be more motivated, right? And we may need repeated reminders, he said, which cracked me up. I think definitely need repeated reminders for me. So being constantly aware of the destructive effects. All right. And then Venerable Thupten Chodron, she has a book called Don't Believe Everything You Think. So that's a common theme, you know, from Guru Rinpoche, Pamas, and Baba on down. But, you know, if we look at the stories that we tell ourselves, the nonstop talk, what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, you know, the Nam talk idea. If we look at that, then sometimes there are obvious things and sometimes it takes quiet reflection, but we begin to see some of the stories that we're creating that may not be really based on anything true. And so by beginning to see what we're bringing to every situation, then we can begin to see how to shift that inner working. So these are sort of 3 different ideas. These, you know, 5 ways to bring about change, the thinking about the negative outcomes of destructive emotions, and then thinking about, you know, the stories we create. So we're going to break up into small groups again. And in this case, I would encourage you all to assign a reporter, somebody who's going to maybe bring back to the big group. And it's a chance for people to be brave. I know, stretch out of your comfort zone for those who maybe don't like to share. And nobody's going to be forced to talk, of course. But so we're going to talk about these things. So if I can get my slides to work, I'll show you. I put this up here to try to help sum up what we just said. So the 5 changes, the destructive effects, you know, not believing everything you think, and then the exercise we did before, the changes you either want to make or have made, and if they're ones you want to make, a concrete step. And if none of that gets you going, you could think about antidotes to different destructive emotions, you know, like contentment instead of greed, rejoicing instead of jealousy, like that. So hopefully that'll give you all something juicy to talk about. So if you want to get in your small groups, we'll take a few minutes and work on all that. Yeah, you can pick. Yeah. I heard a really great comment, which is, that's a lot. Yeah, it's a lot of stuff. I don't expect you're going to cover all of it, so just sort of decide which pieces sound interesting to you.
You actually did mention it. I noticed in the moment I was paying attention.
Oh, excellent.
about all this, Donna.
It,
Yeah,
make sure,
I
make sure.
wasn't
Yeah.
interrupting everybody with my
Yeah.
comments.
Oh.
All right. I almost hate to interrupt y'all. Yeah. Well, thanks everybody for sharing with each other. So we've got a few minutes for, reporting back from what you all discussed. Does anybody have a burning desire to do that?
Or a tepid desire.
Okay, just a second.
We talked about at first, don't believe everything you think. And like, what does that mean? So we discussed in length about what that means. Like, you're telling yourself stories about scenarios that you think want to happen, but they don't. They're just happening in your head, not actually in your mind. Because when you actually get to the situation where you've been dwelling on for a while, you don't actually do any of the things that you thought in your head. Another one's when, even if somebody just gives you an angry look and you're not feeling good about yourself and you're like, oh God, they hate me. Well, how do you know that? You can't read their minds. It's just your mind telling you that. So you have to try to tell yourself otherwise. But we discussed a lot of things of how, what was another scenario that we discussed about what we think? That was a lot of it there, so.
Yeah. Yeah, so really trying to pull apart what's coming from your side. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. Oh, sorry. There was somebody back here first. Sorry. Sorry, Susie.
That's okay.
Hi, I'm Carol. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. We talked about a lot of things too. And I think one thing we talked about, pardon? I think one thing we talked about was how to start your day. Starting your day with meditation, starting your day in a calm manner, thinking about what's going to happen during the day, and goals you might have during the day, simple goals. We talked about don't believe everything you think, in terms of putting yourself outside your brain into your mind and looking at being able to observe what you're thinking and change what you're thinking if that needs to happen. And we talked about jealousy. We talked about changing the mindset to be happy for people, instead of looking at what they have, looking at what we have and being grateful for that.
Yeah. Well, you all covered a lot of ground. Yeah. And that the first point you made about, sort of how you start your day. In Buddhism, we talk a lot about setting an intention at the beginning of anything, whether it's today when we did our prayers at the beginning, and then you bookend things by dedicating at the end too. So that idea of, starting the day and how you're thinking about that definitely ties in with even more formal Buddhist practice. Yeah, thank you.
Good morning. So we had a great conversation, and one of the more interesting points was we talked about an example. If two people are having an argument about something, or if someone does something that makes you angry, do you suppress that feeling, or whatever is causing you to feel that way, because there's an issue, there's something that's bothering you, and anger is coming up. Do you suppress that? And is that right? Is that healthy? Is that okay to do that? Because that's not dealing with the issue. So I think what we talked about was being able to, like His Holiness was saying, somehow, and this is not, we all know this is not easy, is somehow to try and look at the situation, look at yourself, look at those feelings, and say, okay, let's try and put this aside for a moment, and let's get back to a rational state of mind. And then at that point, we can address whatever it was that was going on between us from a more effective way to deal with things.
Yeah.
And another interesting thing that came up was about how you mentioned how a baby is crying and is in distress, but they don't know how to express this other than to cry and scream. And I think in a lot of ways, because anger is such a primal emotion, it's a easy go-to feeling and something to express when you have all these things you want to say and feel and get out there, but you don't know how to do it sometimes. And so, yeah, you just sit there and cry like a little baby, but you're screaming and yelling. Yeah.
Yeah, wonderful. And to your point about sort of not just suppressing things, Geshe-la talks about how we really need to digest things, right? Just holding them down isn't the point. It's like working them through, right? Yeah, so I think that's really spot on. Yeah, thanks.
We talked about a couple different things. The first thing we talked about was the difference between conviction and determination in the 5 things for positive change. And so we talked a little bit about that progression of having more and more skin in the game as you move from knowing about something, being convicted about it, then making a determination to do something about it, actually doing something, and then doing something over time. Then we talked about not believing everything you think, and how when you see somebody, for example, first off, we talked about how when we have different thoughts, there's sort of an invitation to have those thoughts and go down that way of thinking, and that we have a choice to kind of follow those or just to notice them and maybe not follow them. And then we talked about when you see somebody on the street, how you might have a whole story about them based on how they're dressed, or even just based on your own mood coming into that day, and how that might not be really founded in anything real, but we have those stories going on. And then finally we talked about impatience as a first step toward anger. So even though if we might not think of ourselves as a very angry person, if we have a lot of impatience, that's something that we could work with, then that over time as we age, that how we can sort out what is my concern, what really may be others' concerns, and to be less concerned about what other people think and more focused on how I'm thinking.
Yeah, thanks. Again, lots of stuff covered. And I think, the idea of anger, it seems like we all know rage, right? That's sort of pegs one end of the scale, or maybe hatred, you could say, is even more than rage, right? But impatience, irritation, frustration, that still smacks of anger. It's just on this continuum, right? And so that's one of the points you raised. Yeah, thanks. So I think we have time for one more. Did you? Yeah. Susie, I'm sorry, but she had her hand up earlier. Let's do both of them. We'll get both of you, and then we'll wrap up.
Well, since everybody covered a lot of that, I was gonna talk about the first one, which is when you have. That's what I was talking to them about. Having, that you're struggling with something, and the first thing is like to assess, start investigating why you're having that, why you behaving that way or feeling that way towards some situation, and then the education comes from that. From my own experience, I was having some issues, and I started reading this Radical Acceptance. But it's a
Tara Brach. It's
yeah.
It's a.
And then once you start understanding and you start having then you have the determination and you start taking action and really making those difference, those changes. So education and really being humble enough to go after that and try to go outside of your ego and attachment to understand what's going on and why you're getting angry, why you're not accepting this, why you're feeling this way. And I think that's important.
Yeah, great. So you've actually got personal experience of working through these 5 pieces of
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Thanks for sharing.
I just had more of a question about anger, like just getting like to the basics of anger. The gentleman up there said it's just such a primal emotion. What is the evolutionary benefit of getting angry? Why do we get angry so easily? Like all of us get angry every 15 minutes or more often. What is the benefit to that? Is it self-preservation? Why do we think that is, why do we do it? How do we not do it?
Yeah, well, I'm not quite sure about an evolutionary benefit, but certainly from the Buddhist point of view, anything that any habits that we have are from past habits, right? So we perpetuate. So like in my case where I talk about being so angry, right? Well, I've practiced being angry a lot, and so it becomes this easy go-to habit, And so by trying to deconstruct that and do something different, then you try to replace that habit, So when we're looking at, certainly if we look at rebirth and all of that, then, you could say when you see, in my case, I think I was pretty good at anger pretty early on, so I probably had practiced it before. But even just looking at this life, we know that the things we practice are the things that then become more of where we go to. So, I don't know, do you want to add anything more to that? Okay. Yeah. Okay. Thanks. Sure. Yeah, please, because we're already running over. Yeah.
Close to your mouth.
I think also, very basically, if we think it's working for us, we want to do it, right? We go to anger because we think it works for us. We go to anger because we're getting what we want for that moment, right? And as long as if it works for us, we will keep doing it. We have to realize, we have to look at how it doesn't work for us in order to stop, right? When we see that it's actually harming us, that anger is not our friend, that it doesn't benefit us, we begin to see the ways that it harms us, then we begin to make the steps towards stopping.
Thank you, Andre. Yeah.
I'm sorry, I just felt.
Yeah, no, great.
And we'll just share a little quote here that it's often attributed to Abe Lincoln, Will Rogers, who knows, but it's a great one for right now. That is, people are about as happy as they make up their minds to be. So.
Yeah. Okay, so just a quick recap here. So I think that for me, a lot of this has so much hope behind it, and I hope that's what people are feeling as opposed to the opposite of that, that we can make positive changes from this very moment forward. It doesn't really matter what the history is because we can change now, and it's never too late to make changes. Geshe often talks about how there could be a room that's been dark for 1,000 years, and as soon as you flip on the light or bring a light in or whatever, then the darkness is completely gone. It doesn't take 1,000 years of the light being on to counter that darkness. So, if we explore how our negative states of mind harm us, just like what Andre was saying, in the moment we can look at it. We can look at it further down the line, and then we can do the same thing for positive states of mind and see how do they help us. And the more we kind of get familiar with that, then it might lead us to being more likely to choose the things that actually have a positive effect for us. And if we build true conviction that these positive states of mind are more helpful, then we'll work in that direction. So I always like to talk about if you're game, and this is only if you want to, throughout this week, maybe you could try to bring some of these things to mind if there were any gems, or if you came up with a concrete next step for a change you want to make, or whatever it is. Just try to bring that to mind this week if you're interested, and really explore this inner world, because it's all just this grand experiment, and so, we can just sort of, with our beakers and our Bunsen burners, we can sort of see what's happening, in our own inner world, and that can be a great exploration every day. So we've got a special little thing we're going to do today, Ask Your SPC.
So we sometimes get questions about protocol in the Gampa, and I thought I'd just take a couple minutes and talk about that. And protocol is one of those scary words. It sounds like, the rules. And when you think about it in diplomacy, protocol is sort of understanding how things work for the people that maybe have a slightly different culture, so that everything can run smoothly and work really well. And in Buddhism, its protocol is sort of like understanding how karma and merit work, so that we can do things to, be to our best benefit. So, for example, one of those is just the way that we treat holy objects such as statues and texts, and we avoid putting them on the seats of chairs, we avoid putting them on the floor, we don't step over them, and that's really just about creating the karma by treating the holy things with respect. Then we're creating the karma to meet the teachings again. And I think about that. We made these chair covers with places to put the books, because if you sit in a chair like me, your knees go down and you don't want everything to fall down, so it makes it a lot easier for us when we're not using them to just have them there, and then we can kind of treat them with respect. And another protocol that creates the karma to hear the teachings is being ready. So it's like when I have the good fortune to go hear His Holiness teach, I'm always in the auditorium an hour before he's scheduled to begin, because I don't want to miss a word of it. And I'm still going to be chatting with the person next to me, but I'm just sort of there getting my mind ready. And likewise, we do that here when the teacher is going to come. And we're in the Gampa, we're in our seats, and we're kind of ready when Geshe-la comes in to greet him and hear the amazing teachings that he has to offer us. So I don't know if anybody has any comments or questions, and if not, we'll move on. Okay.
Okay, so I have one last just minute-long video of His Holiness to have us end on a hopefully upbeat note. And this was from May of last year, again at His Holiness's residence. You might recognize that. And this followed a 2-day interactive dialogue that he had with U.S. Institute of Peace youth leaders. So you might see some kids here.
Optimistic. So due to certainty of problem, it is quite sure whenever we start some good work with sincere motivation, obstacle bound to happen. Then there is danger to lose hope and become pessimistic. So that's really real failure if we lost our hope and conviction and remain, I cannot do. That's the real sort of failure. So no matter how difficult it is, we should be more optimistic sort of attitude. That's my own experience. So through these difficult decades, I always see that. And provided we should be truthful, honest, like that.
So the real failure is losing hope. So that's what His Holiness says. So we started by rejoicing and thinking about how amazing this was. And so if we could just think again, rejoice that we put in the time and effort for this hour and a half, and dedicate anything positive that was created here for the greatest benefit for all beings. And in order to do that, we'll read the prayer from Master Shantideva, which is on page 246 in the gold prayer books. And I believe it's just one page later in the white binders than the prayers we did at the beginning. So, page 246. May all beings everywhere, plagued by sufferings of body and mind, obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtue of my merits. May no living creature suffer, commit evil, or ever fall ill. May no one be afraid or belittled with a mind weighed down by depression. May the blind see forms and the deaf hear sounds. May those whose bodies are worn with toil be restored on finding repose. May the naked find clothing, the hungry find food. May the thirsty find water and delicious drinks. May the poor find wealth, those weak with sorrow find joy. May the forlorn find hope, constant happiness, and prosperity. May there be timely rains and bountiful harvests. May all medicines be effective and wholesome prayers bear fruit. May all who are sick and ill quickly be freed from their ailments. Whatever diseases there are in the world, may they never occur again. May the frightened cease to be afraid and those bound be freed. May the powerless find power, and may people think of benefiting each other. For as long as space remains, for as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the miseries of the world. And we'll do 7 green Tara mantras for the long, happy, healthy lives of our 2 Geshis. Om Tari Tu Re So Ha. 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 Yay. Thanks, everybody.
Okay. So now I'm going to put on my announcement hat. You can't run lit. If a few people could stay after for just a few minutes to help us rearrange the Gampa for the class tomorrow night, that would be great. And then just to remind you, in just 3 weeks, the Light of the Path retreat will be starting up in Black Mountain. Registration for it closes on Friday. I'm looking at you, Robbie. And they're going to, and also before the retreat begins, 3 weeks from yesterday, on Saturday, the 19th of August, Lama Zopa Rinpoche will be here teaching from 11 in the morning until 1 in the afternoon, or later if we're lucky. And so please don't miss this opportunity to hear him. If you're unable to go to the retreat, you really should get the take advantage of having him here. And I don't think Linda is here, but she's coordinating, preparing for that, and there will be plenty of opportunities to volunteer for that. And Robbie has a couple of words for us also.
A lot of people have heard about it. Holiness coming to.
Yeah, let's get a mic so that people who are streaming.
We don't want to miss this one.
About His Holiness coming to the Triangle area. And the latest word from the Office of Tibet just came out this week is that the visit will be in April, not in October this year, which is better in terms of getting organized. There's an executive committee that's been formed with the mayor and other people, and Geshe Gelik is representing Kadampa Center on that. The plan is to have a large public talk at a major venue, a minds interfaith dialogue, an event for students. So it's probably going to be a 3-day visit. The exact dates we don't know yet. They've hired an event planning company called the Special Events Company. They're in the area, and they do things like this around the world. They're very well qualified. They'll be handling all the volunteers. This is not a Kadampa Center event. It's not a City of Raleigh event. It's being sponsored by this executive committee, which is a nonprofit group. So as soon as we get the information on how to volunteer, the contact point will get that out, but it's not going to be done through Kadampa Center. But this gives us a lot more time to get ready.
Oh, yeah, Jill. Okay, good.
Okay, so I wanted to peek outside to make sure before I announce this. Sunday tea is today. So there's goodies out there for you if you want to just partake and enjoy and just have a chat with each other. It's a great time to get to know each other. I was just sitting here thinking for a second. I was distracted, but I came right back. I was thinking, what do I have to announce today? Who has done a text gift here? Oh, like one person? Okay. Two, Kristen. So we need to promote that more. If you've ever seen that, it's easy, isn't it? Did you catch that drop-down menu, though? Was it kind of humorous? Like, or did you see, it populates to general gift. So the first thing is real easy if you just give generally. It is all going to the same bucket. We're good? Okay. But we have a lot of different pots. And so I just wanted to just give you a little taste of how funny this place is sometimes. Our software is Christian-based. Most people know that. And it's so helpful because it's church-related, and that's what, we function the same way. So when Christians give, they give in a very simple way. They have an envelope, or they pass a bowl. They're done. Not the Buddhists. So we give the same, we give just like they give, but we give in so many ways. It's fascinating. I'll call it that, since I have to manage it. So right now, look at what we've got going on. We've got Light of the Path opportunities for sponsorships. 6 to 8 ways, probably like 8 ways. And they have beautiful names, and so you're giving into that bucket. And then we have Lama Zopa Rinpoche's visit sponsorship opportunities. We're not nutty. It's just that these are ways that you feel connected to the teacher, ways that you feel connected to the retreat, which is our teacher. So they're ways for you to feel like your heart has moved towards this way of giving, but it is all giving. Then, so there's like 6 ways to do that. Then we have Lama Tisha statue sponsorships. We have like 4, 5, 6 ways to do that. Then we have general giving, and then we have class giving, and then we have pujas, and we have like 4 of those. And we have, what else do we have? So classes, and then when there's visiting teachers. And so when the visiting teacher's here, there's like 6 ways to do that. So our menu you can imagine you have to pick from all these. Now, when you go online, it's just a button. So you just like, oh, that's easy, which it is. And it takes you straight to where you need to go. But I just wanted you to know that all these ways are necessary because they really are the bottom line to how we operate. Then there's the annual appeal, which the next one will be coming up in the fall. But I just realized, like, if you're new, you wouldn't even know we had a way that that you can help start supporting. Of course, you can drop some cash or check in the box, but you can also go online and set up gifts. I've noticed some new people just do it automatically. How cool is that? So they're setting up their own gift giving for the year. So all these ways are ways for you to feel connected. And so the people at the other end, the software people, they're like, what are you guys doing? And so I explain it. The way I explain it is, who's been to a church before, like in your childhood, and knows what Advent is? Okay, so Advent is before Christmas, Lent is before Easter. So I said, imagine this. It's Advent, and Christmas is coming, and you've got, 4 services, and then Christmas Eve, and then Christmas Day. I said, imagine you can dedicate the first Advent service to your daughter, and you can write something. You can do the Christmas Eve to your wife, and maybe that would be the mother, and you can write something. And then Christmas Day, of course, is to your wife, and then you write this beautiful dedication, and they all go, oh, wow. And so they don't have a way to do that. It's different. So we have this amazing opportunity. Not only can you give in what's probably like 48 ways, you can dedicate all of them. I mean, everything you can write a dedication, and this lovely lady will get it and make it go where it needs to go. It's an easy way to say that. So I just thought, that might be interesting to hear why we do what we do and why we say, please select from the drop-down menu, because if you get the wrong bucket, I have to go, accountant, can you move that over here? But just is that helpful? Does everybody? So if you have any questions, you can always call me or email me and say, what am I doing? So text giving, there's little slips. Lee, can you point? Are they still there? Are they gone? That's where they could live if they were there. And then there's another pile of them outside by the back door on the communication wall if you want to text give or go online and drop things in the box. So that's a little lesson. The Lama Tisha statue, who's going to do the drum roll today? Thank you. I didn't really look, but I think we're at $14,555. So that's really amazing. So we need to keep coming in because Lama Tisha statue is not in Nepal. It's not at the Kadampa Center. I can't tell you. No, it's in between. Yeah, it's somewhere. You know, we don't really know, but it's very close, and so it's really exciting. It's very close. I don't know when it's coming yet, but I will need. That's another thing. If anybody's willing and able, the early in the week, if you can leave your job or come here, could you see me afterwards? Because I'm going to need some bodies to get it in. I don't really know how it's going to happen, but we'll need. Yeah, 6 strong backs. So get in touch with me because I need a list that I can call you and say I need you now. So if you're that kind of person, then just get in touch with me, okay? You have one more thing? That was long enough, right? Okay, so go enjoy the Sunday tea and have a great, lovely day.